Today, I'm gonna give my verdict on this clip from Jay Shetty. He's a popular thinker in the self-help space. In the clip that I've picked, he has actually given us a good conclusion, but his reason is problematic or wrong. Basically, the mistake he's making is he's making some bad connections. In this video, I'll be doing a lot of nitpicking, splitting hairs, but that's what I love doing. It's my domain, talking about the nuance. So let's first listen to the video itself.
For years, I literally felt like my wife didn't care or value me because she wasn't on time.
Right.
So not only am I judging her off of just one metric, you're not on time, that means you don't love me. I realized that would ruin our night.
By the way, I totally relate to this problem because I had the same issue with my girlfriend. She was perpetually late and I was just always annoyed. I have ruined so many outings.
I would be upset she was late. I would be upset on the way there with her.
Upset on the way there, of course. That drive to that place, we were just resolving the conflict. Why were you late again?
I'd be just so angry with her internally that she was late again.
Right.
And I'd stop myself from having a great night with her. Not realizing that the qualities I love about my wife are that she's spontaneous.
Yeah.
She's got this like vibrancy.
Yep.
And I realized that part of being spontaneous and vibrant
Is
means you don't manage time as well.
right?
And so I realized that actually if I wanted my wife to be more like me, I would be stripping her away of the best qualities that I love about her.
So maybe hearing for the first time, this sounds all good, right? Like, what's the problem with this? He has come up with this great realization and he has solved the problem. But he made a big mistake in that realization. What he essentially did was, he gave a good conclusion, but a bad reason. So let's look at his reasons for accepting his wife's bad time management. He says, I quote, he was fighting with her, not realizing that the qualities that I love about my wife are that she's spontaneous, she's got this vibrancy, and I realized that part of being spontaneous and vibrant means you don't manage time that well. I realized that if I wanted my wife to be more like me, I would be stripping her away of the best qualities that I love about her. What he just said is actually not that well rooted in the science of psychology and personality. Let's call this a bad reason. But he used this bad reason to actually come to a good conclusion. And the good conclusion was that basically you accept your wife and you no longer get upset with her for being late. Ultimately, he's able to stay calm and have a better relationship. So let's split hairs now. Let's go to the bad reasons. I'll give you 2 points that'll explain my problem with this. First one, he said part of being spontaneous and vibrant means you don't manage that time well. So he has set up a cause and effect here. He's basically saying that bad time management is contributing to her spontaneity, her vibrancy. So the first mistake he makes is he's connecting two things which are actually independent in nature. And that's how we kind of are built. Like our brain is built up of so many cognitive skills which are independent of each other. We have language skills, we have perception skills, we have direction skills, we of course have visual auditory skills. They may of course complement each other, but they are inherently independent. The same for your personality also. For personality, we believe in the Big 5 model of personality where there are 5 major traits, and those traits also have sub-facets. And all of those traits and those facets are considered to be independent of each other. Now, what does independence really mean here? Independence basically means that 2 traits or 2 facets or 2 cognitive skills may or may not appear together. In his wife's case, she's spontaneous, but she doesn't manage her time well. But there may be so many other people who are spontaneous yet very punctual. And the other way around is also true. Now, she's bad with time and she happens to be spontaneous, but there must be people also who are bad with timing and also not so spontaneous or vibrant. So connecting those 2 things was a fallacy. In fact, there is some literature on it as well. So let's look at punctuality. So here we see that punctuality is related to which traits? Conscientiousness, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Conscientiousness was related to all aspects of punctuality. Agreeableness predicted time of arrival as well as earliness, and neuroticism was related to earliness. So these underlying traits together are connected with punctuality. But when I looked for spontaneity, I couldn't find specific research on spontaneity for this, but I did find some related things. We can simply take a look at some of the facets of the Big 5 personality model and we can find some words which are related to spontaneity. So here if we go to neuroticism, we have impulsiveness, kind of related to spontaneity. Then in extroversion, we have activity, excitement seeking, positive emotions, that's related to vibrancy. Then we have openness to experience, which involves feelings, actions, and yeah, that's it. So the spontaneity and the vibrancy that he's seeing in his wife is probably coming from these other traits: neuroticism, extroversion, and openness to experience. So we already see here that these are very different aspects of personality. They are pretty independent. But within eroticism, I think these are different facets. Spontaneity was probably related to impulsiveness, and punctuality, I think, would be related to this self-consciousness. So if there is any connection, it's actually the opposite one. So if somebody is more neurotic overall, they're both more spontaneous and punctual. Now please understand, this is not perfect science, but this is definitely better than what you instinctively understand personality. It's the closest to reality that we can get so far. The conclusion of this point for me is, Jay Shetty can continue to work on her punctuality. He can let go of that bad connection. If his wife learns to be more punctual, it will not make her less spontaneous. Punctuality will simply be an added skill. Now I come to point number 2. Bad reasons and conclusions can lead to more bad reasons and conclusions and ultimately hurt your progress. So his bad reason was that spontaneity and vibrancy, they're coming partly from bad time management. If we allow this line of thinking, we can come up with more conclusions like that. What if tomorrow his wife in anger starts to abuse people and starts saying really nasty things that are very hurtful? Then he says, well, she has no filter. And I accept that, because part of being spontaneous and vibrant is having no filter. If I try to change her, make her more self-conscious and more deliberate, it would take away her spontaneity and vibrancy. I would be stripping her away of the best qualities that I love about her. Another one, she goes to the mall, buys really expensive things, never uses them, and then keeps buying more. It adds to a lot of clutter in the house. It is a financial burden and it leads to so much waste. But I accept that, because part of being spontaneous and vibrant is that you make spontaneous and fun decisions. If I make her more disciplined in her shopping habits, I would be taking away her spontaneity and vibrancy. I would be stripping her away of the best qualities that I love about her. You get the point? Once you get into the zone of bad reasoning, you can justify anything anywhere, because you're simply not in touch with reality anymore. And such bad understanding ultimately prevents optimal progress. Now, because of this understanding, he would give up on helping her with her time management. And if the wife gets convinced by this logic, she can justify her lack of punctuality always. She would just have to bring up her spontaneity and vibrancy. It's bad for her, bad for the relationship, and bad for Jay Shetty also. See, I do want to acknowledge that the conclusion that he reached of accepting her wife is a lot better than his previous state, in which he was constantly fighting with her. So he sure has made some progress, but it's not enough, it's not optimal. There's room for so much more. Now the question is, what is the better approach? The approach that I took, that Jay Shetty can take, and you can take. The core principle here is understanding the paradox of taking acceptance and progress simultaneously. It's a paradox because when you hear acceptance, you're like, okay, I mean, if I accept it, why would I want to change it? But the difference is ultimately internal and external. What you do is, internally you accept things so you can remain calm and peaceful and actually nice to other people. But externally, you keep making progress because you just want to improve your life. I mean, you do have a lot of time on this earth, don't you? So let's make some progress. So the question is, how do you accept a partner who is constantly late with good reasons? I actually made a detailed video exactly on this subject. I'll add the link in the description, but I'll give you a summary of those points. See, when my girlfriend is late, I just don't understand why she can't just change herself. I mean, to me, it's not that difficult being on time. But then I realized that ultimately, even punctuality is a skill, and it varies across people. And just like any other personality skill, it's very difficult to change. People are born with certain ways of being, certain ways of thinking and behaving, and change requires a lot of reflection, new thoughts, and practice. So when I fight with her to just change quickly, I mean, it's easy for me to say, but for her to do it, it may need weeks and months or years of practice. It's like, can I just give you a guitar and just demand that you play it well right now? You just can't. It's a skill that needs to be developed. When you see it like that, your expectations become realistic. Second, you have to correct your implication, and in this point, Jay Shetty was actually right. He was also looking at wife being late as a disrespect to him, as if she doesn't love me. I also used to see it like that. Like, if you care about me, if you love me, if you respect me, you'll be mindful of my time. You won't keep me waiting. But that's again a bad connection. Her punctuality and her respecting me again are two different things. She loves me but just doesn't have the skill of punctuality. In fact, she loves me so much that she's able to just be herself in front of me, and her true self is bad time management. Then there are some general things that really helped me with this problem. You always have to look at the larger context. Like, this is my girlfriend. I should be grateful that I have one. Some people don't even have a girlfriend. At least I have a person who loves me and who's ready to accompany me in my activities. I can share things with her. I can spend quality time with her. I can joke with her. I have a friend all the time. Where is the gratitude for that? Why am I not feeling that blessing? I need to keep it in mind. And also, I need to remember the good parts as well. well. Each relationship will have its own strengths and weaknesses. When I'm stuck on her being late, I'm forgetting about the good parts as well. I'm not saying you never focus on that conversation. Maybe you should, maybe you do need to work on it. But if you remember the good parts, if you remember the strengths of the relationship always, it keeps you calmer, it keeps you happier, it keeps you measured. Your tone would not be as harsh. You will not sound that disappointed. You will not create such a big ruckus like, why does this happen with me? Next is just a cost and benefit analysis. Like, when I'm just so hyper concerned about being on time, is that such a big benefit that I'm ready to pay cost in terms of my own mental peace and peace of relationship? I'm supposed to go to the party to enjoy for 2 to 3 hours. Let's say if she takes away 15 minutes of that, I still have 2 hours 45 minutes left. But in fighting for those 15 minutes, I end up wasting all the 3 hours. How does that make sense? Also, a general rule that I adopt is prioritize human experience over other things. It's usually not a good idea to make somebody suffer in the present to achieve happiness later. By fighting with my girlfriend over this, I'm making her unhappy right now so that I can make the host happy. So a better approach to life is, we may or may not get happiness, but at least let's not cause suffering. So staying away from suffering, pain and conflict is more important than going after happiness. Of course, it may have exceptions, but as a general rule, it's really good. Next, in general, whenever I get angry, I try to remember I make mistakes too. There are times in my life where I have been late. I have also made other people wait in life, and I may still do that again in future. And how do I want other people to talk to me? I want them to talk to me nicely, let it go. And if they are really troubled, communicate it constructively. I would never want people fighting me over this. So why am I doing it with her? And more such principles. Now, this is of course not the full list that I have in mind, but these were some important ones. Let's come to the second part of the new approach, which is the improvement part. So Jay Shetty can still work with his girlfriend to improve her time management. I still do that with my girlfriend. I do it because it helps her life and our relationship both at the same time. It's not like an active project, but whenever it does come up, I do talk about it. I do try to make sure that it improves. I can start with what I don't do. I've stopped judging her, making sarcastic comments, shouting, fighting. All of that can get toxic very quickly. The central part of this approach is I have to keep a casual attitude. I can't sound disappointed. I can't look down on her. I have to still respect her. So one thing I often do with her is I make her plan things instead of me doing it. For example, I'll tell her, okay, so we have 5 things to accomplish. So let's say we have the whole day ahead of us and we have 4 or 5 things to do. You plan it right here with me. So I make her visualize the day and plan it step by step. And as she plans it out loud with me, I realize how terrible her visualization is. I basically found out that she has no space for contingencies here. For example, if she has to reach the mall in 30 minutes and she knows that the cab will take 30 minutes, she will book the cab at 5:30 when she has to reach at 6. She would not take into account the waiting time for the cab, walking from her apartment to the street and from the street to the inside of the mall. She would just skip those things in her planning. So now I've helped her practice putting in contingencies whenever she's planning ahead. So like if it's gonna take you 40 minutes, in your mind, make it 55 and leave accordingly. So this is her practice. But some days when it's really important that we do make it on time, I don't fully rely on her. I know that once she's late, there's no point fighting with her about it. So I start reminding her an hour or two in advance. Like I would remind her of the time, okay, now it's 8:15, now it's 8:45, now it's 9:15. Now my reminders do annoy her a little bit, I must admit, but she has also learned to tolerate them because she knows it's for a better purpose. And I've realized that these reminders are a lot better than me complaining afterwards. But I repeat, in both the things, me planning it with her, practicing, and also me reminding her, the approach that I have to take is nice, casual, gentle. And I have to keep my expectations realistic. The results will not come in a week or a month. It may take years before she gets really better at this punctuality and time management. But hey, I'm not in a hurry. I'll keep trying. We'll keep making marginal improvements. So that's how I internally stay calm, because I've accepted her. But externally, I do make some progress because I've learned a constructive way to work on things. Now this is of course advanced level skills because it would require you to manage your own emotions, and that's pretty difficult. But I've given you some very important principles here. The path ahead, it can be accomplished, so do try. Now for Jay Shetty, my general opinion is he's a nice, wise guy, and I do think that he's making a very positive influence on society, and he also talks about learning constantly. So I hope when he sees this, if he does, maybe he can update his reasoning. For this particular clip of Jay Shetty, this is my score. How useful? 7 on 10. How true? 4 out of 10. Usefulness is basically how much it can help other people improve their lives, and truthfulness is how logical or scientific it is. So 7 out of 10 and 4 out of 10. That's my verdict. Thanks for listening. And if you like this analysis, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. A very important factor in mental peace is that instead of just thinking internally, you should be able to talk about your frustrations to someone. But sometimes your friends and family can get tired of listening or might not even understand you well. That's why you should talk to a therapist. Your emotions need regular air ventilation. Your thoughts need regular garbage disposal, like once every week with a trained therapist. At Shridhar Life School, we have a team of therapists that you can talk to. Please go to shridharlifeschool.com to book your sessions.